Hey everyone, this is Wild and Woolly Gaming coming to you today to go over the patch 1.91 for War Thunders. Absolutely massive patch, and we'll be adding tons of content and also removing some content that I'll get to in a few moments. So before I get into all of it, please like, subscribe, do whatever, comment at the end of this, whatever. That's out of the way. So at first, I'll just kind of go over what they're adding and removing, what it means, and also, in my opinion, how we can at least partially, fix the game. So to start, the biggest news, and this is what kind of kicked off a lot of objections: the fact that they're removing the Panther 2, the Mouse tank, the Panther or the Tiger 10.5, as well as the Coelian. And to top it all off, and I'll get into this in a few minutes, they're adding the 685, the Object 685, which is insane. But I'll get into all that in a moment. So they're adding Mach 2 jets, which is insane. I'm really excited for, but I'll have to be wary about their implementation. They're adding the F4C Phantom 2 as well as the MiG-21 F-13. They're also adding a Chinese tech tree, albeit with largely copy and pasted units from other nations, primarily the US and the Soviets. I'll get into that in a few minutes too. They're adding a new map, or 3 new maps, and a map filter, so you can actually choose which maps you don't want to play. And I say choose which maps you don't want to play because I believe you can only deselect 3 maps in total. So, being that that's only a few maps compared to the litany of maps essentially that we're able to play, it would make sense to say that you can't play certain maps. Anyways, night vision. That's another huge thing, but who would have thought that this news would not be the headlining news for a patch? This, like, just for any patch. But that's how big this patch is, because you're, like I said before, getting the F4C, the MiG-21. They're removing tanks that people absolutely love. There's a new nation. The night vision, again, that would be a headlining piece of news, is now kind of just a piece of news. We're getting new helicopters, which, in my opinion, are, while you have advancements, some helicopters are better than others. More or less, helicopters tend to be kind of different flavors of the same thing, at least at this point in development. As mentioned before, we're getting the 685, the Object 685. We're also getting another AA vehicle, which is the Sidem 25 Mistral, an Italian vehicle. There's also a few vehicles that they did not mention that we are getting. I believe the F-89, if I'm not mistaken. For the Americans, there will be 2 versions of that being added to the American premium tree, as well as a few Italian vehicles and whatever else. A lot of them tend to be copy and pasted vehicles. The F-89 is a totally new vehicle in the game. So, what does this all mean? Balancing issues, first of all. With the F4C Phantom 2, from what I saw, and they could change this, it's not released yet, it's a 10 BR plane. A 10 BR plane, Mach 2 with 11 1,000-pound bombs, all these different features, and it's a BR-10 plane. That is insane to me. It should be at least a BR 10.7 or an 11. You're making this thing so it faces a Korean war jet, the F-86 F2, which is a subsonic jet facing something that can legitimately go more than 2 times its speed. That is insane. That'd be like, imagine if you're just kind of sitting on the side of a road and a car goes by you at Mach 1. That's that's the speed difference almost that you're seeing, more so or even less than what you're going to see between planes that the F4 Phantom 2 as well as the MiG-21 face. It will be that big of a difference. Just imagine someone running by you at over Mach 1. That's how big of a difference this will be. Continued compression. Again, noting that the F-86 is possibly going to be facing the F4 Phantom. They should really decompress it, expand the BRs, and I could see a big reason why they're not. They want to make sure that queue times aren't incredibly long, but that gets into my next thing here. Longer queue times. You're going to have a lot of people, just not wanting to face the F4. People who might have just unlocked the F-86 F2 or some other BR-9 jets who just don't want to get annihilated by these planes and just get completely humiliated by people who have been playing the game for years. and who have unlocked these planes or who buy them essentially with free research. So in that way, queue lines will just get longer, and one could make the argument that queue lines would get longer if you decompress it, but I think at least that would go part of the way towards fixing the game in the long run, and I'll get into that in just a few moments. Germans will continue to suffer, and the reason being, and I went over this in a previous video, they had the best World War II vehicles. Essentially, in World War II, the whole doctrine was up armor and up gun your weapons. And because reliability issues are not reflected in War Thunder, you end up having these tanks that were envisioned by the German high command as being what they are in this game, right? Just totally, completely reliable tanks with big guns and big armor. Post World War II, the doctrine changed to the point where nowadays they say no armor is best armor, right? So basically, having the best World War II vehicles means that they end up facing post World War II vehicle designs in games that in game that these new designs have new ammo types that can just annihilate German vehicles, completely annihilate them. You're facing heat shells versus a mouse tank or a tiger tank, a king tiger really, but these tanks that were otherwise extremely powerful and really just great tanks to use versus other World War II vehicles, now they're getting annihilated because they're facing tanks and other vehicles that are 25 plus years in the future. That's insane. I mean, could you imagine facing a Mark 1 tank versus a Panther 2 or even a Panther 3? It wouldn't be close. It's kind of the same idea here, except at least the Germans have a gun that can still defeat people, kind of. There's no Me-262 HG series in the foreseeable future, especially with the reasoning for Gaijin removing the Panther 2 and the other German vehicles, being that they claim that they're paper tanks and not competitive. Why would they add the Me-262 HG series? But then again, they're adding the Object 685, so who knows, right? I mean, years ago they said that they'd release or create the Me-262 HG1 and 2. The HG1 at least flew and set theoretically a speed record at the time. I believe it went over 600 miles per hour for a jet. So that's insane. The futures of other planes, like the Horten 229, they're in doubt, along with other planes and tanks like the Ma-262C series and possibly the Waffenträger. Great planes, but Gaijin, for example, with the Tiger 10.5 is called that a filler, so that it was kind of there so that the Germans would have something at that BR to face off against other tanks. So that makes me think that the Ma-262C series, which is in the game, is kind of like the HG series in that it had it was just basically prototyping. Same with the Waffenträger. There was hardly anything from that was created. I believe there were 3 different types, but that was it. They weren't put into mass production. It was just a prototype. So what will happen? Are those going to be removed too? This said, other units like the RU-251 and the Object 120 remain in-game and are absolutely overpowered, despite their prototype and non-production status. They're borderline pay to win. Many people would consider them pay to win. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been getting into the beginning of a match with a German tank, right? Like a heavy, well-armored tank with a great gun, moderately quick, but not insanely quick. And I get into I start trying to capture a base, and then all of a sudden, some RU-251 hiding behind a bush just annihilates me. Because they got there, like, right when the game started. It's insane. And plus they have heat shells, again, which just annihilate anything. This new 1.91 patch also means more Mach 2 and future jets will be added to the game. It's gotta. I mean, if the F-100D didn't open the door, the F-4C as well as the MiG-21 will. I can see the F-14, F-15, F-16, all of those being added to the game in the next patch or within a few patches. The MiG-29, MiG-35, as well as, I think even more so, the MiG-25, which will be one of the next additions for the top-end Russian planes. I could see those being added. This also means that supersonic and incredibly heavy bombers might be added too, like the B-58 Hustler, which had a top speed of around 1.7 Mach, as well as the B-52, which had 70,000 pounds of has 70,000 pounds of bombs that can be stored in it. It's insane. But how will they implement that? That's the big question. So you're looking at it as Gaijin has been kind of sneaking around this. They have not been adding bombers with incredibly high bomb loads. Really, the only planes that they've been adding in the last few patches, if they are bomb capable, are light bombers or just fighters that can equip bombers or bombs on them. They haven't added any true bombers that can go extremely fast. Any true Korean War plus bombers. They've had post World War II, but pre-Korean War bombers in this game largely. And also stealth tech. I feel like that will be in the future. I mean, if you're adding night vision and thermal optics to this game, you'd probably have something as well that could maybe be a counter to it, rather than just something passive like shutting off your engine. So, how I'm proposing to partially fix the game, and I'm not proposing a fix-all, nor do I think my solutions will fix even most of the problems, but I think they can go a decent way to making the game a little bit more playable, if nothing else. So to start, by selecting certain ammo types, some vehicles will see a BR increase, or will be ineligible to fight World War II vehicles. Now, when I say this, you have tanks like the Leopard 1, which is a 7.3 in arcade or a 7.7 in realistic, facing tanks, as stated before, like the Mouse. The Mouse was developed in, I think initially in 43, 44, whereas the Leopard 1 came about 25 or 30 years after, right? And the ammo is, again, as advanced as the Leopard. So you're taking this ridiculously high penetrating, high explosive round that can just annihilate the Mouse and putting it up against it. So I think that by increasing, or by making it so that if you have the heat shell, maybe your BR goes up by 0.3, or by not equipping it, it goes down by 0.3 or 0.4, whatever the case may be. Same with the M46 Patton. That is at least in arcade, a 7.0 BR tank. You add the heat shell, now you have a 7.0 non-premium tank with heat shells that can penetrate over 300 millimeters of armor. And you're talking, you can face a 6.0 tank with that thing and just completely annihilate it from any angle all the time. So, the main issue with this would be longer queue times, but I think it will alleviate some of the issues with compression. I think also over time it will also decrease queue times just because more people want to play higher tier matches. Decompressing BRs in general would also be a great idea, making it so that the RU-251 is a higher BR, as well as the Object 120, and a lot of people think these tanks shouldn't even be in the game. So, applying the rules, again, how to partially fix the game, applying the rules that apply to Germans to all tech trees. The reason why German vehicles become ineffective is because Gaijin is forcing them to face ammo types that completely annihilate them, as well as planes that totally outclass them. The Me-262, for example, was first designed in the late 30s, whereas the F-86 was designed in the late 40s, and with the help of new technology and knowledge that the Germans just did not have. This said, the German vehicles being removed are described as completely ineffective and outclassed by all their peers, like the Mouse being destroyed by heat and sabot rounds. By decompressing BRs, the Mouse will, at least in part, become effective again. The KT-105, or the King Tiger 10.5C M, will be more at its rightful place, rather than having to face the RU-251 or Leopard 1 on a constant basis. Further, Gaijin is also using the explanation that the Mouse, Panther II, KT-105, and Kowalian are paper and prototype designs. All, and again, this is why I said before, all while adding the Object 685 into the game in the same patch. Insane to me. The Object 685 was a prototype design and only one was made. Their explanation for this is, hey, well, it was a build-on, essentially, of the BP-2, or the BPM, whatever the tank is. Insane to me. The 10.5 is a build on the King Tiger, and from what I'm to understand, it was never built, but it's already in the game. The genie's out of the bottle. And I'll go over this in a few moments, but Germany needs the help because Germany suffers. Copying and pasting to fill out tech trees. This is occurring with the new Chinese tech tree, and has happened with the French and Italian tech trees as well, understandably, but at least they had their own native designs. So, Gaijin is explained as being okay for the Chinese tech tree because actual Chinese designs later in the game, in more modern eras, will come out, right? While more of a preference thing, as the Chinese tree actually allows the ability to use Russian and American vehicles side by side, I feel that the Swedish or even Hungarians presented better options for a new tech tree than the Chinese. As they have, throughout their history, built many more native designs than the Chinese. I mean, even now, and I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but you could argue that the Chinese are just ripping off designs from other nations. It seems like almost every other time that you see a massive attack from China, massive cyber attack, within a few years you have this new plane that looks suspiciously American coming out of the Chinese. Wonder why? To this point, adding more native designs. And I could see why they're adding the Chinese tech tree at this point. By the way, it's largely because of money. The Chinese are a huge gaming market, and I went over that in a previous video, but whatever. To this point, adding more native designs would be great. Gaijin, at least in this case, in the case of Germany, should not completely bar prototypes or one-off planes or tanks. Unlike other nations, Germany and its government especially, they capitulated at the end of World War II, making it so that further weapon development ended for the short-term future. So, I mean, you're taking it so that their work on the Me-262, which was improving dramatically, the Junkers Jumo 004, which was the engine, again improving dramatically. They had afterburners in those near the end of the war, just not ready. They weren't being produced, but they were working. They just weren't being made anymore. So that it was almost kind of like ending an entire line of animals, right? There's no more further development and evolution cannot take place. Whereas countries like the U.S., Russia, France, England, China, really almost every other nation in the game didn't capitulate following the war. Nor were they forced to split into two nations, like Germany. Japan being the only other country outside of Germany that completely capitulated, and were forced into occupation / heavy rebuilding. Italy did as well, but just not to the same extent as the other two Axis powers. Also has issues with foreign designs infiltrating their tech tree. Now, while this is accurate for both Germany and Japan, they did create some native designs that should be embraced, but are relegated to the trash bin by Gaijin. Now, both of these prototypes were toying with it, or both these countries were toying with advanced designs that reached prototype stage by the end of the war, and again were completely stopped due to the end of the war. The Messerschmitt design, I believe it was the P1101, again swept wing aircraft, which had variable sweep wings on the ground. It was used as a test bed or as a design to influence the Bell X2. Which came out years later. It was an extremely advanced design and was slated to be a production plane for the Germans had the war not ended, when it did. Now, being that they hold this special place in War Thunder, I think Gaijin should allow more of their prototypes into the game so that countries remain competitive and so that they can maintain their native designs, so that not everything is copy and paste. As mentioned previously, the Me-262 HG1 as well as possibly the HG2 should be given more consideration to be put into this game, especially considering their status as a capitulated nation following the war. I also feel that the Junker or the Ju-287, the Junkers 287, with its forward swept wings and large bomb capacity, could be a higher BR German bomber than the AR-234, or at least similar, the same BR. The Soviets and Americans especially had the benefit of continuing in their tech line in real life, whereas the Germans and Japanese did not. Essentially, in summation of this point, due to this, some of the prototype designs that the Germans and Japanese and even the Italians came up with should be in the game, as it will add unique historical flavor as well as keeping their tech trees within their own nations. Additionally, 2 more points, I'm just about done here, add more bases to attack, more base types. So like ammo dumps, train depots, headquarters, for example, and make it so that strafing runs with bullets and cannons could actually be effective to a degree. I think you should also add vehicles to destroy in some bases as a variable and something additional to do rather than having a health bar to just kind of kill. And to this point, having trains kind of going around the map would be really cool, especially armored trains with guns on them. I think that would be a really cool feature that they could add to this game that for whatever reason they haven't. They've added train tracks and also that one train and that one tank map, but that's it. They've not really developed it. And finally, I think that one other really cool feature that could help at least improve the game, it wouldn't fix any of the issues so much, but it would help improve the game and make it more user-friendly, add hardpoints to planes in which you can select the loadout just so long as it makes sense and wouldn't be too much for the plane to handle, right? So you could put on this hardpoint, let's say, 2 500-pound bombs, right, and have that on each wing so that it's symmetrical. And then on this one, you can put, on some other hard point, you could put in a rocket pod, or rocket pods on both wings, and kind of customize it like that rather than being forced into a cookie cutter hardpoint design that Gaijin just kind of puts onto you. Either way, guys, this is a really long video, and I expected it to be half as long, but what are you going to do? I felt like there was a lot to go over, and there was even more to go over that I kind of forgot about while I was making this video. And I'm sure I'll probably mention it in the description or the comments. Anyways, guys, tell me what you think. Do I have some good points here? Comment below, like, subscribe. It really means a lot as I'm trying to grow this channel. But, there's a lot to go over with 1.91, and I think almost more than any other patch, this patch has huge implications for the future of this game, and really is a signpost of things to come, or not a signpost, but it's an indicator of things to come. And whether you like it or not, I really think that we're going to be getting into some really crazy technology, and we'll see what happens with the game. Anyways, again, thanks so much, guys, and hope you guys like the video. See you in the clear skies, everyone. Take care.